Hello everyone, my name is Yuhan. I am assistant professor from City University of Hong Kong's Computer Science Department. I'm here to present our Chi 24 research on emotion embodied, unveiling the expressive potential of single hand gestures. We as human beings experience different emotions every day, and being able to express and capture these emotions can bring lots of benefits, including increased awareness of our own mental well-being, assisting communication, especially in virtual settings where it is difficult to directly inform the other party of how we feel. We have seen several ways of emotion capture in existing work, including self-report, facial expression recognition, and biosensing. Gesture-based emotion capture, on the other hand, is less studied, but has been shown intuitive for people to analyze different emojis that we use in daily communications. In fact, research on the relationship between hand gestures and emotions can date back several decades ago, grounded in the scientific concept called embodied cognition. So the idea is that emotions are not solely experienced as internal mental status, but also manifested and expressed through bodily sensations, movement, and postures. As a type of bodily action, hand gestures have been recognized as a widely used channel for self-expression, which is presented in almost all cultures as a nonverbal language to facilitate communication. In the SIGCHI community, gesture-based interaction largely focuses on designing natural commands to control the movement and the actions of computing systems, objects, and applications. And there has been little work examining the sentiment behind these gestures. So we wonder how hand gestures can be used for emotion expression and tracking in daily life. Moreover, the development of wearable and sensing technologies has made it possible for off-the-shelf devices such as smartwatch to recognize different hand gestures through accelerometers. Additionally, motion sensors without cameras can also track hand and finger movements, which are privacy-friendly and easy to deploy in real-life settings. The advancement of these technologies motivated us to further look into the role of single-hand gestures in emotion expression. Partially because these single-hand gestures are easy to perform and capture by these lightweight devices. Also, there has been little research studied how to express emotions using only one hand. So here comes to our research question. How do people express different types of emotions through single-hand gestures? We want to investigate not only the symbolic meanings of the gestures, but also gestural features such as finger pointing directions and their connections to emotions. We're also interested in how people externalize their emotions through gestures. As a first step, we need to identify a wide range of emotions for people to express. Drawing from Russell's third-complex model, we selected 12 emotions at different valence and arousal level. Here, valence focuses on the positive or negative aspects of the emotion, while arousal represents the intensity of the emotion from low to high. To effectively elucidate this emotion, we use the image stimuli, which are frequently used in psychology research. Our research team turned to OASIS, which is an open access database, to select 12 images to represent these emotions. And we then compiled these images into an online survey. And for each image stimuli, we asked participants to choose a word that best describes how the image made them feel, and then rate the valence and arousal level of that emotion in a Likert scales. Lastly, they were also asked to form a single hand gesture to express that particular emotion and upload them in a photo plus a short videos. We also did some follow-up interviews with participants to understand their gesture forming rationales. After excluding the noises, we ended up gathering response from 63 participants with over 700 photos and video files. Our participants are from diverse regions, including US, UK, Hong Kong, India, and exaggerate. We also interviewed 11 of these participants to further understand how these gestures are come up with. To analyze the gestures, we followed an iterative qualitative coding process and extracted several gestural features after intensively developed the codebook. Here are some examples of how we coded these gestures. We first described the gesture name using conventional terms or came up with a name that the team agreed upon to describe that gesture. For example, we called the first gesture number 6, the second gesture scratch, and the third gesture grab. As for finger pointing direction and palm directions, they are more straightforward, which included up or down, left or right, towards or backwards the body. For gesture strength, we tried to mimic what we observed from the photo and the video to feel how much strength it took to form that particular gesture and categorize them into tight, loose, or unclear if we couldn't tell. For the motion parts, we tried to include all the movements we observed and group them into different ending status depending on whether she stopped or not. And we also categorized the motion frequency, including high, medium, and low. Then we conducted a chi-square test to examine the correlations between the coded gesture features and emotion valence and arousal. We also analyzed the interview data with thematic analysis. Our finding covered multiple aspects about single-hand-based emotion capture. Due to the interest of time, I cannot cover everything here, but will only highlight 2 of the most important parts. If you're interested in knowing more, please refer to our paper. We find 2 gestural features that are significantly related to emotion valence and arousal. The first one is finger pointing direction. We find participants tended to point downward while expressing negative and low arousal emotions such as depressed. And participants tended to point upward while expressing positive emotions regardless of the level of arousal. That includes high arousal emotions such as excited and happy, and low arousal emotion including relaxed and calm. The other significantly correlated feature is gesture strength. We find that participants tend to form tight gestures while expressing high arousal emotions, regardless of the valence. That include positive emotions such as excited and happy, as well as negative emotions such as tense and angry. On the contrary, participants tended to form loose gestures while expressing negative and low arousal emotions such as tired and bored. As for how these gestures are formed, we identified 4 major channels. A side note here is that the image stimuli we used in the survey played an important role in helping participants understand or feel the emotion, but they're not the focus of this presentation because what we want to highlight are these 4 interesting channels of emotion externalization. So the first channel is communication norm, which is also the most commonly observed one. It comes from the common sense of how a hand gesture represents emotions, relying on the shared understanding of nonverbal communication norms. For example, using thumb up, okay, victory to express positive emotions, whereas closed fist to express negative emotions comes from everyday life that everyone would agree. Interestingly, participants' communication norm is affected by their social and cultural backgrounds. For example, using number 6 to express excited came from the street dance culture, as well as the Chinese slang where 666 is used to express something really cool. Another commonly observed channel is creative embodiment, which refers to self-created gestures with personalized meanings and narratives. For example, participants would slowly drop their hand to mimic a downhearted person as a way to express the feeling tired. They also try to use the gesture to describe the scenarios from the image stimuli, including a fast opening palm for an adventurous and exciting skydiving, and a slowly waving palm for a peaceful lake depicted in the beautiful natural scene. Physical expression is also commonly brought up by participants, where they directly express emotions based on physical instinct, often as a way to vent out negative emotions. And we find that this expression often centered on movements of punching or scratching to express anger or frustration. Lastly, we observed several instances of abstract expression. They are often used to express low arousal emotions that are less expressive because there's no direct connection between the gesture and the emotion. To express bored, for example, participants form gestures such as slightly touched fingers or slowly flipping palms, but they couldn't explain how and why these gestures were formed during the interviews. Drawing from the findings, our discussion focused on two aspects: emotion characterization and contextualization, and the design implications for enhancing multimodal emotion tracking. First, our study showed that emotions are not just levels of valence and arousal. They are also associated with meaning and experience, especially when our participants self-created gestures to capture the details in the scenarios they observed from the images. This highlighted the importance to capture the relevant context in emotion tracking tools for rich personal experience. And when participants use these self-created hand gestures to express their emotions, they also added this nuanced and personalized cues for emotional context, leveraging the symbolic meanings of the gestures. So this finding showed that when we employ hand gestures to track emotions, we can also leverage these gestures to add context associated with the corresponding emotions. And the expressiveness of single hand gestures can also complement biosensing data captured on wearable device. For example, if a smartwatch detects an abnormally increasing heart rate, it can pop up a message asking how the wearer is currently feeling. And the wearer could simply respond with a thumbs up or thumbs down to indicate a positive or negative feelings without actual efforts. People can even use gestures to convey more complicated emotions with varying strengths or finger pointing directions to indicate the valence and arousal level of their emotions. Beyond emotion tracking, these gestures can facilitate computer-mediated communications by supporting one to quickly respond to a message on wearable devices without when they're not convenient to type or speak. And in human-robot communication, people could define their gesture commands to provide feedback, such as telling the robot that it does a good job, or express one's feelings during the communication for a more empathetic interactive experience. Well, there are many more interesting things I want to share about this work, but I have to stop here because we are run out of time. Lastly, I want to thank our participants, anonymous reviewers, for getting this work published, by other students for help with selecting the image stimuli and the literature search. I also want to thank CTU Hong Kong for supporting this project. As a side note, I'm always looking for motivated PhD students who are interested in HCI and health. So if you're interested, feel free to drop me an email or catch up at the conference. Alright, that's all for the presentation. Thank you for your attention.